Hello and welcome to another battle report. This one is going to feature the 7th edition Eldar codex, and we're not going to shy away from the D so we can see what it does. My list, the premise of my list was to take the same thing I took last week as close as possible. I ended up dropping holofields off of wave serpents and adding an X-arc to the spiders that's irresistible, adding 2 scatter lasers to the Wraith Knight, and removing 1 fire dragon. I think otherwise it is exactly the same list. Scatter lasers, shuriken cannons, 8 warp spiders, 3 units of Dire Avengers. I did not take advantage of any of the formation bonuses. This is a CAD with Dark Eldar allies with a webway portal. So it's almost the exact same number of models as I took in the last game. That's it. My opponent's list, however, changed pretty dramatically from last week to this week. He had to switch to taking Eldar as his primary CAD, or as a CAD form, rather, so that he could take a Wraith Knight. He also dropped in 5 Wraith Guard, just with bloop guns. He still has a Farseer and a Succubus. They have the Webway Portal, and they'll be in the Tantalus. He still has the same mask formation, but instead of having an Archon, he has an Autarch for some reserves manipulation. But the raider that they're in will be scattering its full distance. He filled out his Eldar CAD with a unit of Rangers and a unit of Guardians. The Guardians do have a Bright Lance, and they also bought a Warlock. And then he's got 5 Dark Eldar Warriors. I believe that they have a Blaster in that unit as well. The Rangers are actually not bad. I mean, you have to shoot them with Ignore's cover or assault them. I actually ended up having to assault them myself. His Wraith Knight, he only put 1 scatter laser on. We'll see, who wins that battle. His Wave Serpent is loaded up. He's got holofield still for the 5-up invulnerable. Doesn't have a shuriken cannon, and does actually have an EML on it. His Raider, his Venom, and then of course the Tantalus, which is Tote's Lord of War. Here's a shot of the table with terrain before deployment. It's Dawn of War. The mission is Crusade with 4 objectives. There's 1 in each of the ruins, left and right on my side, 1 in front of the ruin on the top left corner, and then 1 in the middle of the board. Night fighting is not in effect, and as of right now, my opponent has first turn, or deploys, actually. And here we are, almost after the end of deployment. You can see the Ranger sitting in the middle of the board there. He hasn't infiltrated them yet. Wave Serpent on the one end, the Guardians are in it. Those are my Dark Eldar Warriors sitting on an objective there, and a Wave Serpent sitting on another objective there. I placed it so it would be difficult for his Wraith Knight to get a beat on it, but maybe not impossible. And that's where the Rangers infiltrated to. As is usual with our games, he gave me first turn after I deployed, counter-deployed with not very much on the board. He kept his Knight where it was, pushed his Wave Serpent over to get a little bit better angle on mine, and despite having decent cover from the ruins, I took 2 hull points. He blew his shield and the missile launcher at it and almost took it out on turn 1. So here we are at the end of the top of turn 2, and this is what everyone's worried about. I deep struck my Wraith Knight because it's funny. Scattered a few inches towards his Wraith Knight. I hit with both of my bloop cannons, and I rolled a 1, and then I rolled a 6, and then he picked up his model and set it to the side. I had shot at it with the warp spiders first, just to try to whittle it down a little bit in case, and I did. I got 2 wounds to stick with them, although mathematically that's not a very good option. 1 Wave Serpent came in over on this side, and 1 Wave Serpent came in over on the far side there and went flat out. I'm going to have to relearn when to get out of the vehicle and when not to. I figured with 1 hull point left, it would be better off if I just dropped off the Dire Avengers there and went out and to see what I could do and what I couldn't do. Scatter lasers, though, definitely don't cut it. He didn't take anything, any damage from that Wave Serpent, the black one. This other one went flat out just so I could start getting better angles and start moving towards that objective. So here we are at the bottom of turn 2. The Raider with the Harlequins did not come in from reserves. His Venom and his Totes Lord of War Tantalus did. It's not a Lord of War, it's a joke. The Splinter Cannon and the warriors inside shooting at the Dark Eldar warriors that were camping that objective, plus the minus to the leadership, I think it was the Armor of Misery. They failed their leadership miserably, ran off the board. You'll notice I no longer have a Wraith Knight standing there, so you live by the D and die by the D. The 5 Wraith Guard blooped him. Now, he did try to shriek the Wraith Knight first, but I managed to deny it with some lucky rolls. But then all that meant was that the Wraith Guard had to roll and hit it 4 times, rolled 2 1s and 2 6s, so I picked mine up. Flicker Jump is going to be great to learn how to use. I hadn't really planned for it, and so I didn't actually even make a jetpack move of any consequence. I should have shuffled closer to that terrain. As it is, when I did make my Flicker Jump, I got like a 5-inch, 6-inch move, which left the X-Arc hanging out. I got lucky, saved a couple saves, lookout surd, and survived, which meant I automatically passed my morale check, despite being at a -2 to leadership. I jinked the Black Wave Serpent against a strike from the missile and managed to avoid it. Top of turn 3, all of my reserves come in. I had held them out actually on turn 2. I'd held out both units of Hornets and the Wave Serpent so I could come in behind the Tantalus, which is pretty standard practice. If you think that Wraithguard and D are goofy, wait till you shoot an open-top transport with Fire Dragons. He jinked all but one of them. I got 1 pen, and I rolled a 3 on the pen chart, and it blew up because I am +4 versus open-topped. I mean, it was absolutely just silliness. Hornets then took out 3 of his Wraithguard there, leaving him with the Farseer and the Succubus. Yeah. And I didn't lose any Fire Dragons in the ensuing explosion. Those Hornets up at the top of the screen there, he jinked everything that they put on him, though, which was pretty impressive. Here, again, learning how to work with Flicker Jump. Because of the Lookout Sir that I'd made, I was pretty far away. I was out of coherency with my X-Arc, so I had to try to get them back into it, and my difficult terrain roll was really low, so I actually had to spend their running phase as well, just getting them back into coherency. Slap fight over here on this side. My Wave Serpents can do nothing to him. The bottom of turn 3 sees some pretty hilarious things happen, or not hilarious, depending on which player you are. From my perspective, they were all hilarious. The Succubus split off. Succubus and the Farseer split off from the Wraithguard. The Wraithguard shot at the Hornets, jinked of course, and then they managed to simply do 1 hull point out of all of that. I expected to just pick up the unit, so it was really, really underwhelming. The Raider with the Harlequins came in, but it scattered away from where he wanted it. He wanted it to be closer to the Fire Dragons in that unit. The Succubus and the Farseer charged into the Fire Dragons. After shrieking, I think he took out 2 dragons with Shriek. Issued a challenge. I accepted with my Archon. And then the Succubus did 1 wound to him. She did like 2 or 3, actually. He made some feel no pains. And then in return, he wounded her. I think she made her saves, but the Farseer was killed. So he actually ended up losing combat and breaking, but did manage to get away. So his Succubus is running for her life. The Harlequins there, they got off a Shriek or whatever it is against one of the Dire Avengers, and I ended up losing 1, and that's pretty much it there. We break for dinner at this point, which explains the change in the lighting quality when we get back, because it's dark, store lights are on. I also forgot to mention that the Venom was wrecked on turn 2 when my reserves came in. That Raider up there is stunned and has 1 hull point remaining. And then on this side of the board here, the Wave Serpent, Fire Dragons, etc. helped clean up the Succubus. The Hornets actually took care of the Wraithguard on their own, even though they were snap firing. I managed to get hits on them. Over here on this side, I'm still trying to figure out a little bit how to play Dire Avengers. I just lined them up and took shots at these guys, but the Autarch tanked the wounds like a champ, only ended up taking 1 wound. And a haywire grenade from last turn actually wrecked that wave serpent when they got out. I forgot to mention that. Warp spiders, still learning how to use them. They actually warp jumped over so they could get shots on that wave serpent, and did manage to put a hull point on it, but nothing else. And then they used their jetpack move to get closer to the Rangers, because I realized that if the Rangers shoot at them, they can actually flicker jump closer to them if that's what they want to do. Over here, I was optimistic about destroying that wave serpent. It would have been pretty automatic in the last codex, so I disembarked my Dire Avengers, hoping to be able to shoot Guardians, but that did not happen. The bottom of turn 4, I continue to learn lessons in humility. The stunned raider shoots its lance at my wave serpent. I say absolutely I will not jink. Hits, gets a pen, stuns my wave serpent. So that's a bummer there. It's an absolute slaughter in close combat over here. I chose to overwatch at BS2. Still didn't do anything to them. Yeah, I mean, Harlequins in close combat, they're not bad. Not bad at all. Then on this side of the board here, he disembarked his Guardians, who got to shoot my Dire Avengers, but otherwise he was unable to do anything to this Wave Serpent here. My plan for the next turn is hopefully to take care of that Wave Serpent and then to try to tank shock his Guardians off of the table, because they're pretty low leadership, and the Warlock doesn't help. So here we are at the top of turn 5, and so I want to point out that the presence of D in the game, really, I D'd him, he D'd me, and then I took care of his second unit of D guys. Otherwise, he was playing like a normal game. I'm having trouble consolidating like all of the objectives. My Warp Spiders managed to shoot at and then assault, win combat, and run down the Rangers. But otherwise, they made a lot of 2-up cover saves in the meantime, and they were actually pretty hard to dig out. This objective here, I mean, there's nothing I have that will be able to take that. And then over here, my tank shock failed, my brilliant plan. I put my scatter laser into him, and he made good saves. I only took 2 wounds out of a 12-man, 13-man unit, something like that, 11-man unit, whatever it was. So he didn't even need a morale check for that. The game ends on a natural die roll, turn 5. We split the Crusade objectives to tie there. I did get First Blood. Neither one of us got Slay the Warlord, and we both have Line Breaker, so I end up winning due to First Blood. The Harlequins, if the game had gone on, would have been interesting. They were going to make a play for the objective in the upper right there in that ruin. I was going to try to thin out their numbers and push them back so that even with a good run roll, they couldn't get in range of it there. So whether or not that would all come to pass would be interesting, because they did have that Veil of Tears up. The Autarch had split off to hold that objective, and over here the Bright Lance hit, and I think it immobilized it, and then the Guardians swarmed it and glanced it to death with their grenades. All hail the mighty Guardian.